Speaking to you from the Cabinet Room at 10 Downing Street. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
Oh, thank you. It's delicious. Do you know, it's on days like this you could almost forget that there's even a war on. They say that it might all be over soon. I have no idea what it's going to be like. But we can't go back to how things were. Can't even remember how they were. I'm certainly not the same girl. Well, none of us are. These are a real treat. And a perk of the job. Mother is very good at the rations, and I've become a dab hand in our garden veg patch. Robert, our evacuee, he came home with a rabbit at the weekend. That was quite the prize. And our neighbour swaps us an egg or two if she has spare. We've become a real community in our town. I've learned a lot from the WLA. I've made the best friends a girl could ask for. It'll soon be picking season, and we will quite literally see the fruits of our labour. I would love to stay in the hostel with Polly and Elizabeth. But I pay the 14 shillings a week I'd pay in lodgings to Mother's housekeeping. And I don't live too far away from the farm, especially now that the buses are free. The work is hard. It's 50 hours a week in the summer, but I love it. We get 28 shillings a week. The boys get 10 more. But we get a week's holiday now every year. So exciting. Last year I saved up and I took Robert, Mother and I to the seaside for a night. Father stayed home. He said he wanted some peace and quiet, but I think his back was playing up. Of course, if there wasn't a war, I'd probably have a family of my own by now. Well, there's no point in wallowing in the what-ifs when we've got so much to be grateful for. I'm going to save the rest of these. I know a couple of little people who will love them. Right, enough dilly-dallying. Back to work.
Normally, I'd have been catching the bus to go down to visit my aunt in Farnham, but well, for the last 5 years, it's been me behind the driving wheel. When war broke out 6 years ago, we were all expected to do our bit. I felt guilty, actually. The thought of driving a bus sounded exciting. Some people are risking their lives, joining up to fight. There was me having fun. Before the war, I was just working in my aunt's shop, selling newspapers, stationery, that sort of thing. I'd met Tommy. We were talking about settling down. Tommy was such an exciting person. Oh, naturally, he wanted to join up straight away. And he went with his friends. And after a bit of training, they were all posted. Tommy ended up in Egypt, driving trucks, transporting supplies. Actually, he's the reason that I decided to go and work with buses. Well, you see, before the war, apart from working in the shop, I spent a lot of hours in the garage with Tommy working on engines. So it seemed natural that I'd go and work on the buses. It's funny, I always used to think whenever I was driving my bus, and Tommy was somewhere in Egypt driving his truck, that we were sort of doing the same job, just really far apart from each other. Of course, it was different. I mean, my bus was never fired on. My wheels never ran over a mine. And my driving seat was never blown apart. Still, strange now, actually. I mean, the army's been telling us that they don't need all the buses they repurposed before the war. So I've actually spent my day painting our old buses from military grey back to A&D green. It's been nice, actually. It's felt like a bit of freedom. Just me in the depot, sun shining down. It feels like things are starting to change again. But we've still got to just keep doing our part, you know?
Do you know what I miss? The noise. You know, the everyday noise. People walking about, chatting, nattering, kids playing in the street before they're all taken out of their classrooms and given all these new rules that you can't go see your family and can't pop down to your little shop and get a nice big bag of fudge. I haven't had fudge in this place for 5 years. I do have some of those posh lemon drops, you know. I keep them aside for Mrs. Bundle. She's been getting a bit of a tickly throat, so I thought I'll put some aside for her. She's a good girl, you know, look after her. Talking about keeping things aside, whenever I get a nice big lump of ham, I always chop the end off for Mrs. Milne. She's been looking after the old folks and keeping an eye on things, keeping the world turning whilst everything else seems to be going mad. Good girl. Can't do it for everyone though. Everyone asks, but I can't. Don't know how long all this is going to last. Don't know how long it has to last for. So I guess we all just got to knuckle in. They're all off doing their best, keeping us safe. So I guess we've got to do our bit. Just be ready for when it's all ends, because when all them lot come home, got to make sure that everything's nice and tidy for them. That there's something for them to come home to.
Well, my life down here has been quite the adjustment. I never pictured myself living the rural life, but I think it could be really quite pleasant in different circumstances. And goodness knows how I'll adjust back to London life after all this is over. As excited as I am to get back to the hustle and bustle of the city, I will miss the friends that I've made down here. And I just thank heavens that my parents have stayed safe. I do think it was rather a good thing that my mother sent me away early on during war. I was working at Oxford Street in Bourne and Hollingsworth right at the beginning. I'd always wanted to be a shop girl. But as soon as the Blitz started, my mother, she was concerned, and rightly so. The department store took a hit soon after. Well, Mother was even more worried and panicked, as they are to do. So she demanded that I pack up and join my sister Polly, who had already enrolled in the Women's Land Army in Hampshire. Well, I thought that rural life would already be quite the shock. I didn't think the WLA would be for me. So I signed up to work at the evacuation centre instead. All of the children who are evacuated who don't have homes to go to, they stay with us in the centre, and we provide activities and learning for them. It really is like a family. And for the first time, right here in Aldershot, I feel like I truly have a purpose. Some of those children, they left home 6 years ago, and some of them have lost their homes forever, never able to return. So we understand each other. And if I can be a source of comfort to them in this chaotic time, then I have made a difference.
Days like this, I feel like my feet might just fall off. Been at the factory all day, 12 hours without a cup of tea. We work hard, us canary girls. Packing shells night and day. With all the factories up and down the country, we must be making millions of the things. All ready to lob at the Germans. People forget about us girls. Tucked away in our factories full of secrets. We don't get no praise. We're not considered frontliners. We're like sewer workers. Don't get a big round of applause, but we keep things going. You'd miss us if we weren't there. Vital to the war effort. I remember the way the lads would talk about us girls before the war started. Like we were delicate flowers to be admired. Well, there's nothing delicate about working in a factory, I can tell you. All day long, we're lugging round great heavy sacks and lifting big boxes. But you'll never hear us complain. Even when our skin turns yellow, we start to cough. Well, that's the powder, that is. Still, the money's good, and I'm grateful for the work. Well, since my biddy left, money's been tight, and I've got 2 hungry mouths to feed. When the war started and we went into lockdown, lots of people lost their jobs. But the war created new opportunities, new factories making supplies for the front line. Still, the shortages were extreme. Some items you wait weeks, even months for. And then they brought in the rationing. Well, that was to share what little we had. We don't have much money for luxuries. Not that there are many luxuries these days. But we get by. My Billy was posted to the front line in Europe last year. Not heard a peep from him these last 6 months. I expect he's busy, in the thick of it. Still, I do worry about him. Thank goodness I've got my mother to watch the children so I can go to work. I hardly see my Harry or my Lily these days. Still, we've got to do our bit.